seriously, how involved is Trevor and how much more should he be involved? I asked this question this offseason quite a bit. Is this now Trevor's offense? In fact, I think I asked him that last week. Is this his offense? Does it matter who calls plays? Is he the one that's going to be the judge and jury on those plays anyway? Is he the one that's going to have the power to be like, screw that, we're calling this? I don't know. He does call the quarterback sneak sometimes when they don't like it.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. Maybe not.
He told me last year when we had him live on our Draft Night in Duval special at Daly's place, he's like, yeah, I've talked to them a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he said that live in our show. He's like, yeah, I've poked my head in there. So he had already been a part of these conversations. How much of a part of the conversation was he for a Gabe Davis? How much was he a part of the conversation for, hey, Calvin Ridley? Some people wondered, hey, if he went to bat for Ridley, is he mad now that you didn't get him? Mm-hmm. How much will he be a part of, hey, can we go try to get Ayuk? Can we trade up to go get a Dunze? I'm cool with Brian Thomas. You need to give me a first-round wide receiver? We could actually go get another tight end. Like, how much is he a part of those conversations? I don't have the answer to that. It might be a very small conversation. I got to believe he's involved if they're about to write a pretty hefty check to him at some point over the next few months. And I think he gave us hints last year around this time that he already had been involved.
Yeah, and if you missed the draft special last year, it was the infamous Brent and Trevor handshake.
Oh, that's right.
The awkward debacle that was.
It wasn't as awkward as
I know some of you may not have been listening at the time. We were in a different spot, but if you can go find that video.
But if you just watch the words and listen to the words, like, it was good commentary coming out of there from Trevor is what I'm getting at.
But if you watch the video, it was terribly awkward. They were standing very close together. Then they went for the handshake. It was just... oh, man, what a mess. But in terms of what you're actually talking about, yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to make Trevor Lawrence that guy and pay him to be that guy, then it would be stupid to not listen to his opinion. Now, it doesn't mean you do everything he says because, it could have been as simple as, and I don't think it's, oh, Trevor Lawrence didn't want Calvin Ridley, that's why they didn't get him. Trevor might have been, hey, I'd like to have Calvin Ridley back. Hey, we're not paying that. Conversation over. Like, there's only so much that you can do or say if you're Trevor Lawrence, and I think they should listen to it because, again, all of the faith and hope that the Jags have had since 2021 and really 2020 when you were losing all those games and you're like, hey, maybe they'll get Trevor Lawrence, has all been around Trevor Lawrence. So you've got to do what you got to do to, one, keep him happy, give him the best opportunity to perform on the field, and, again, hopefully it works out. And back to the comment about signing guys because they're nice. I'm not going to go away from this. When we were still doing radio, I said that they still need to see stuff from Trevor Lawrence. And listen, if you're paying strictly on what you saw on the field, I do think you need to see more. But I think it's also fair to say that you're not going to find, in my opinion, the face of your franchise for all of the other stuff. You're not going to find a better person than Trevor Lawrence. And if he just, I guess, elevates his game, which he will need to do, then, it's a perfect match.
Protesting the stream for more No Gate Fees episodes during the week. I like it. We're just going one at a time here, 2:00 tomorrow, but thanks for the free promotion there.
That's why.
John.
Was that a plant?
I don't know.
You know that person. You definitely know.
I don't know Johnny like Hamby knows him. I think that's Hamby's good buddy.
Okay.
And so more No Gate Fees coming tomorrow, by the way, 2:00 here in the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network.
That's what heck of a
and
thing
we'll
to throw
replay
out there.
Thursday and Friday, too. High Five Power Polls are going to be out there.
Still do that?
We do. We do it all. We've had a good year so far on No Gate Fees and Committed to the Uncommitted and everything else presented by Nimnick Buick GMC. Brent Martineau and Kasey Kuhrts. I got this in on Austin Lane. By the way, he is not going to join us. He's still busy with the doctors and some of the other things that you got to do to check in out there in Vegas. So he will be with us tomorrow and probably Thursday, Friday as well.
You missed it. You weren't here. You're at the Masters. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to share the story, but I'm going to. Sorry, Austin. So the show had just ended. And bro gets a random FaceTime from some number he doesn't know in his tiny little phone.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, yeah, I'm going to answer it. It was some UFC doctor. And he had to do all this crazy stuff like on the fly. Like, I'm literally standing here recording, bro. He's jumping on one foot to like show that his like
really?
It's why he's doing push-ups and sit-ups. It's crazy.
It was like a physical on FaceTime.
Yes. It was like out of the blue. And I was like, what would have happened if he would have called 10 minutes early? Like, we still would have been in the show. Yeah. The guy had no idea there was a show. It's just when he was calling.
Well, good thing you didn't have to participate in the coughing part of that.
Yeah. Hey, that would have not been good. I'm not. Yeah, I mean.
He did have to do a live pee in a cup
The good old live pee in a cup. Yep.
So, I mean, this has been quite the journey here back with Austin on this UFC.
Yeah. I'm just stunned he has more doctor stuff after the FaceTime push-ups. That was just terrible.
So, one last thing on the Trevor front. If Trevor has one way, he goes knocking on the door of Bulky and Shad and Tony and Doug.
Yeah.
Kind of did that out of order, so I was like, who did I just say? Yeah. So he goes in there and he meets, hey, guys, what's up? Hope you're doing well. I got one thing I just would, hey, Trev, you got one thing you'd love to see happen in this draft. We can do one thing for you, ideally.
I mean, if you're doing one thing for Trevor Lawrence, it's receiver.
But you're locked in that it's receiver because, see, this is where I get a little different on people that are so convinced like he might have been mad at Calvin Ridley or they need another receiver. I don't know if Trevor himself is going to the wall saying we need another receiver. He loves Zay Jones.
Agreed.
He loves Christian Kirk. He loves Evan Ingram. And they just got him Gabe Davis. And he's been hanging out with Gabe a lot. He's got Travis Etienne. They just got better at center. Like, I'm thinking that Trevor, I get the outside world. It's like, we need number one, need number one, need number one. I get it. And I'm not telling you that he would deny it. But I also think what you don't understand here is he's got a lot of faith in those guys. While you guys have all written off, and maybe all of us have written off Zay Jones, he has not. Like, he thinks Zay Jones is going to come back and have a 75-catch season for him. So I think we take the Joe Burrow asking for Jamar Chase thought process instead of an offensive lineman, and we apply it to everybody. And I just don't know if that's really what he's asking. I think he loves the guys he's got. He has great relationships with the guys he's got. It's the one thing I was curious about with Calvin Ridley. I don't think he didn't like him. I just think, did they have that kind of connection, that kind of bond? And I think when you have that kind of bond on and off the field, I think you believe in the guy, and maybe falsely. Like, he might be better off not having Zay Jones at this point in his career, coming off injury, and having one of those guys to go get. But I'm not convinced that's what he would say.
Yeah, I don't say it because of the Joe Burrow thing. I just say it because if Trevor, in your scenario, and I just don't believe that Trevor Lawrence is going out of his way to say, hey, you know what? Can we get a corner?
Well, that's true.
Like, if you would ask me this question in the day before free agency, before we knew anything, I would say, yes, I would say Trevor would go in that room and say, hey, whether it's the draft or free agency, we need push there.
Yeah.
That's what I need. If you want us to do what, because again, and I said this a little bit yesterday, in my opinion, this thing all goes back to Travis Etienne because we think Travis Etienne's damn good. We've talked about it for 2 years.
Yeah.
And we've said, how do they get him the ball more? Do they throw it to him? Can they do this? Can they do that? They got to figure out a way for him to run the ball consistently and get that push interior because then that just opens everything else up. So I think if you're trying to figure out what helps Trevor Lawrence the most, and this is not going to be a groundbreaking take, it's running the football and doing it consistently. So that's where I would say if you can get that push in the middle, and that comes from your left guard too, whoever you decide to play there, you've got to be able to consistently move people the opposite direction rather than them coming back at Trevor Lawrence. So I think if it's now, I don't know what else it would be other than wide receiver, but I think overall, I think they probably cured his biggest need.
Yeah.
And they should be able to run the ball and more consistently move people.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's pretty clear. Like, I would say for Trevor, hey, guys, if there's one move that I can make before the draft, Doug, call plays. Trevor's not saying that.
Right.
Trevor's going to be like, oh, we're good. I wonder if he would say, hey, guys, have you watched this Brock Bowers kid play?
That's true.
Like, I really wonder if he would say that. Like, what would it look like if we put Ingram and Bowers? I got the receivers. We're good. We got guys that can do different stuff.
Yeah.
No, but again, that's my point. And listen, the easy answer here is, yeah, go get a Dunze, Marvin Harrison, whatever. And then you got to be like, hey, guy, the rest of the room, Shad, Tony, Doug, Trent, be like, Trev, I know, like, we would love that too, but it's really not going to happen. Like, they're going to be off the board by number 7. Okay, so then what's next?
Right.
Well, is it okay? But I still think Brian Thomas is really good. I think we need a future left tackle. Or I think Brock Bowers is awesome. Let's go get him. Like, I mean, those are basically your 3 options, like guys, something like that. So, and I think he likes Cam, and I think he likes Walker Little, so I don't think he's going to do anything there. I really think, I think a receiver makes a lot of sense. I also think Bowers would be interesting in this conversation. He watches a lot of SEC football. He knows Georgia football a little bit too. And then I would add one more thing. And this is where we never consider this, but inside the building they do. And I know you said, don't go get us a corner. But the more they stack up that defense, the better it is for that offense.
Agreed. For
like
sure.
there is a domino there. They get them the ball back. They get everything else. Like I think he's excited about the Josh Allen extension, not just because he likes Josh, but because they're going to get some sack fumbles and have a short field from time to time.
So maybe the bigger thing is Trevor's, in this fictional scenario, maybe the bigger thing is Trevor goes in there and says, hey, we're good. You don't need to do something crazy here. Like, we like what we got. Go get us a good football player.
Yeah, Swerve's trying to sell tickets to London, okay? Sure. That's not necessarily good for him. It's good for the operation. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm asking you about face of the franchise. You do something from a big picture CEO point of view. Maybe going to get Jared Verse. Maybe going to get Byron. Hey, I'm hearing awesome stuff about Byron Murphy at Clemson.
Right.
This guy's legit. Mm-hmm. If you can get him, just add him to the piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
It might not be just on offense.
Yeah, no, that would make some sense. And I think if you're talking about he's looking for an offensive piece, if you would ask this question in 2020, right after Doug leaves Philadelphia, how could you not want the second tight end? Because it just makes too much sense. But I think when you've got the 2 years of evidence is they're not going to throw that guy the ball, it's easier to sit here and say, yeah, what's the point of drafting Brock Bowers? But if they were to end up with Brock Bowers somehow, some way, and Doug kind of, makes it a point to run with those two tight ends and get them both the ball, well then, all bets are off. That's just extremely dangerous. But I just think it's hard after 2 years of going, well, Dan Arnold didn't get it. And yes, I know Brock Bowers probably better than Dan Arnold, right? Just saying. And last year, Brent and Strange, they didn't do much of that. He was a rookie. I get it. But if they were going to be committed to getting both those guys on the field and throwing them the football, well, then you don't need the other receiver. You've got that guy. I know you guys talked about that, but
yeah, and I think it's a fascinating discussion.
It's just hard to feel good, even though there is distant evidence that they could do well with it. It's hard after 2 years to say, yeah, that's the no-brainer move, because it feels like they're not doing it.
Yeah. The reason I pose it this way, and first of all, I think it's just fascinating from the face of the frame. I don't think we talk about that view enough. Like, what's it look like from Trevor's view, which they're asking. But I also don't know if we fully understand sometimes the inner building view versus the outer building view. And, I mean, Trevor had no idea when I asked him the question about play calling that we had already asked Doug twice about play calling. He was like non-committal. He had no idea.
Right.
Like, he is not watching it that way. He's not consuming it that way. He doesn't think it's even a question. While everybody outside the building for 4 months has fired Press Taylor, and we've asked for Doug to call plays. Mm-hmm. Like, he doesn't. That's what I'm talking about. Like, whether you think that's good or bad, the bottom line is real life for them is not what's been our life for 3 months.
Right.
Disgusting.
Isn't that a wild thing?
Like, I don't think we stop and remember that enough.
They're just not in the same world that we're in.
They're not.
Like, they live here, but like when Brent comes on TV, they're like, what's on the other channel? Like, they don't.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, he watches.
No, he watches the regular newscast, but when Brent comes on, he's like, I don't need to hear Brent talking about me. I'm good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're just not living in that world.
Which you would, if I was talking about you, you'd be locked in.
I'd be like, oh, let's get Brent on. What channel again? No, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, it's CBS 47, Fox 30. I know you know that.
Yeah, gotcha.
But
programmed favorites on the TV. You know what I'm saying?
But isn't that wild? Like, we don't, like, we have to remind ourselves of that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, like, my questioning is a reminder of that. And I think we've really got loose with that, like, in our sports media world. Like, we are asking, I try not to do this, but I think sometimes we're asking questions that are basically like what Twitter's talking about.
Yeah.
Rather than like, okay, are these real questions I'm not a fan of that, but are these real questions inside the building? Right. And like, you'll see it on their face and be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
But then there'll be other times they'll be like, they know exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
Like Doug laughed yesterday.
Yeah, he laughed at you. That was tough. But I mean, you said it last year multiple times, and granted, this wasn't always the case, but it felt like a decent amount of times last year, they had it schemed up. They just didn't execute. Yeah. They did that a lot last year. So like, Trevor's like, if I'm better, then we're better. You know what I mean? It's simple. So who knows? I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff that goes into the play calling that just we never see.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be as simple as delivery of how you speak. You know what I mean?
Well, it's communication, it's performance, it's also like in they'll say it, that's why they call it the ultimate team game. Everybody's going to do their job, but you just don't know a lot of times who did their job wrong.
Right.
Like, you really don't know. This is what gets me about football. This is a fascinating part about football. Usually on the defensive side of things, as we break this stuff down, my favorite thing is people in our business say, I watch the tape. Yeah, right, whatever. Who gives a damn if you watch the tape? You had no idea what the freaking guy was supposed to do anyway.
Right.
You don't know the play call.
No.
So if you watch the tape, what are you basing it on? Like the guys like Orlovsky and others will be like, well, I didn't know what these guys were supposed to do here. They'll at least admit that. Mm-hmm. Other people are afraid to admit that. But you have, like, I always bring this play up. 3rd and 17 against the New England Patriots. Mm-hmm. When we do the Jacksonville documentary, we're going to ask every defensive player whose fault it was. And there'll be 5 different answers.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So whose fault was it? Well, we're going to tell you whose fault it is. Like,
true.
Right? I mean, we know, but they don't even know.
Right.
Like, I have asked people that question inside about 3rd and 17, and they have given me multiple answers over the years on whose fault that was. That's it in a nutshell for me.
Yeah.
Like, because the play that goes wrong to Calvin Ridley in Cleveland, was it him that broke off the route? Was it a miscommunication earlier in the huddle? Was it Trevor not hitting a spot? Was it the left guard that got leaky and Myles Garrett beat him?
Yeah.
Like, who knows? They know.
Yes.
That's
somebody knows.
And I think that's probably the biggest defense of Press Taylor over this last 6 months. We know, or we think we know, that other guys were messing up during the play.
Yes.
So then how the hell do we know if the play call was that bad?
True. Yeah, if you don't execute, how do you know?
That's been my biggest defense of Press. That, and you had to take, like, you literally just, like, ripped pages out of the playbook because you couldn't run a damn yard.
Well, that's one thing we definitely know. They couldn't.
Yeah,
they
for whatever
couldn't
reason, they could not do it.
They couldn't do it. And that kind of, I don't know, Brent, I play a lot of Madden. I don't know if you do. There's like 70 inside runs in my playbook. So if you have to take 70 plays out, you're kind of in trouble.
Yeah. Well, and listen, I think K-Mac there,
yep.
There's an element of knowing your personnel strengths. I get that. And still calling inside run for no gain, we need a yard. Yeah, but they also abandoned that stuff, like against Tennessee. They abandoned the run because they had to, which means you can't even get a yard on the 1 yard line because you've ripped those pages out of the playbook. It's not even a threat anymore. You're not even trying to do it. So listen, there's a lot that goes into it. But I also find that part fascinating, which I also think, coming back full circle, we have no idea what Trevor really wants or needs. But I had plenty of people questioning over the last couple of months that now he's pissed that Calvin Ridley's gone. Is he really? He just got in front of a microphone on Tuesday that said, I love Jacksonville, want to be here forever. Yeah. Like, doesn't sound like a guy that's pissed off.
No,
we had Josh
really.
Allen on Friday. He's raving about everything going on inside the building. Is there really that much of a disconnect?
Who do you trust?
Just depends who you talk to, who you trust, right? Who you think, who's got an agenda.
True. Josh don't have an agenda.
Josh, you don't have
got
an
a
agenda.
lot of money, though.
He's going to cash a check. That's what he's got, his agenda.